So the topic is inhuman UI, inhuman interface. It is something opposite to human, inhuman. It means that we're doing bad job every day. We're doing something wrong with our code, with our interfaces, and I'm going to tell you how to fix it and how to at least start to think about it. So, inhuman UI. It's actually Marvel Comics. Never seen it before, but I saw this inhuman thing on Google Images, and I thought, this should be the cover of my talk. Have you seen this comic before? Me too. Anyway, so I work at HTML Academy. This is a company based in St. Petersburg, Russia. We teach our students front-end technologies, starting from basic HTML, like what is p tag and something like this, to really advanced JavaScript. So mostly front-end. But we also try in PHP, but just in case, to see if it sticks. But mostly front-end. And in August this year, we're starting something new. We decided to relaunch our basic HTML course with two important additions. Addition number one, we've switched from floats and inline blocks to flexbox. Finally, we're teaching how to lay out their pages with flexbox instead of those ancient things that you should probably throw away right now. And the second thing is that I'm reading them 2-hour-long lecture about accessibility. For the first time in the history of our company, we're teaching young students, like 500 people, like a few times a year online. They're learning. We're teaching them about accessibility. And the first lecture took. It's supposed to take 2 hours. It took 3 hours for some reason. So anyway. This is probably the short version of this lecture, or maybe something special for you. I'm not sure. But anyway, we have two criteria that you should match with your code to be able to successfully finish our intensive course. Criteria D26 states that all interactive elements have an active state while pressed or focused from keyboard, meaning that when you're using keyboard, you should be able to interact with interfaces. You should be able to see where are you now and where to go next. This is a crucial thing for interfaces. And the second criteria is all interactive elements have text labels. So no empty buttons, no empty elements, no like mystery things on your pages. Everything is labeled, everything is focused and interactive. People that haven't seen HTML before, they succeed with those tasks. Will your code pass those criteria? What do you think? I don't think so. This is not a common thing among developers. And I'm not sure why. So let's talk about DX. Do you know what DX is? Yay, thank you, Martin. DX is like UX, but for developers. It's developer experience. So when you're using some syntactic sugar in Sass, when you're enabling hot reload in your React, you're improving your developer experience. You don't have to reload browser. You don't have to write semicolons, because why? Et cetera, et cetera. So we care a lot about developer experience. We have a lot of speakers here, like 13 speakers as far as I understand, and all of them talking about how to make their life easier, how to make writing code even more pleasant. Like, that's all we talk about. But I think it's the only talk. It's not like I'm better than you. I'm just trying to, with you together, I'm trying to think about the other thing, UX, user experience. Remember why we're here? We're developing interfaces for users. not for developers, not for ourselves, not to, well, probably to get a salary, I guess, and to make our living, but aim of everything is to deliver some interfaces to users so they would consume information with the most efficient way possible. So all about UX. And we should start thinking about it more. You might say that it's not your fault, because there's a usability department, there's a design department, there's a client and manager. You're just recreating in code their mad dreams, so to say. You're just coding, but you're not. You're making decisions every day. Every line of code is a decision, because you're not even on a backhand, but especially on front end, because you're creating actual interfaces that people use. This is very, very important to understand. And what inhuman means? Inhuman means not accessible, not accessible for humans. I mean, there's a huge variety of meanings behind inhuman, but here now we talk about accessibility. We're developing interfaces that are not accessible, and I'll try to change this in this short presentation. Anyway, when we think about accessibility, we think about poor, disabled people, and this is just wrong, just plain wrong. What means not accessible? When you have broken mouse, when you have small screen or slow network, interface, website, service is not accessible to you because you have certain device, certain connection speed, etc., etc. It's not accessible. When there is too small text on the site and the blocked viewport, you cannot zoom on your phone. Some of you might say this is the good thing because we're making our site appy. It looks like an app. No, you're just blocking viewport. That's it. I cannot zoom. This is not accessible. And script instead of links. I go to apple.com and I try to right-click products to open the products in their shop in the new tabs. And what they do, instead of right-clicking, they clicking. And I cannot keep the catalog on one tab and the link on the other, because they're hijacking links and they're using script to. They're trying to be smarter than me, which is yeah, just plain wrong. Fields that blocks pasting or autofill. I hate typing my card number, my bank card number. I like to copy paste it because I have like one password or similar solutions. Like I have Notepad with all my password in it. You know, I care about security. I like to copy paste it, but when you disable copy pasting, you're just forcing me to open Web Inspector and paste it because I'm a developer. So it's not secure. Stop doing this, because you're making interfaces inaccessible. Bright sun, low contrast colors. There was an application for fitness tracking. And I know they developed this application during the winter, and it was all black with white letters. But then summer came up, and they realized that it's not visible outside. Fitness tracker is not usable outside in the sun. What the hell? And they redesigned it to make it black on white instead of white on black. It's not an accessible solution. They didn't realize it because there was a winter. Wrong size or orientation of the screen, etc., etc. This is all about accessibility too, and only then it's about physical difficulties. Like when your hand broken, when you cannot, when you're short-sighted, when you just cannot see interface. There are many people, and all of them different. And interfaces that we build should be accessible to all of them, at least to the most of them. And there are many tools that users can use to access interfaces, like screen readers, many other tools and plugins and software. But every day we're making their life harder. So let's stop doing this. And as a developers, we always think that we have control. It's not true, because as developers, we want to recreate DOM in React just because. As developers, we want to make our site not scalable because it will look better, and once it's scaled, like menu item will drop down or something like this. It will look ugly. But who cares if there is an information available? So we're trying to get as much control as possible, and we always fail. Like responsive design is a disaster, you know? Though they resize windows, those bastards. And instead of using like 1024 pixels width or like 1280, they constantly resize windows. They rotate screens, those bastards. We have to do elastic websites. This is so complicated. But this is our job. So there's no control. Like there are too many devices. There are too many different users. There are too many different scenarios that we cannot control everything. We can only hope. We can only try to make it better, to make it more accessible to everybody. So the really important thing about accessibility is semantics. It's like if you talk every day, like in your native language, like Russian, English, any other language. You don't think about how do you do this? How you choose words? What words mean? You just do it because you learned it as a kid. And as a developer, you do the same thing, but you have to understand what you're doing, because other people, they hear what you say, they use code that you write, and it would be easier for them if you do it correct, if you do it right. So there's a nice picture. Yeah, I found this picture with colors, and I thought that putting tags would be better, because it actually shows what's happening right now. I'm not talking to you. I'm not telling you that knowing all of those tags is like essential to your work, but there are many really important tags here, elements from HTML spec that are crucial for your interfaces, and everything you use is div. Don't be like this guy. Be like this lady. This is the real code from the real website. And there's a disease called divitis, you know? Very contagious. And what's going on here? Like everything I see here is just class names and divs and everything. But if I strip everything meaningless from here, I'll see just this. And this is probably hokku or something like this. Japanese poetry. I don't know. A restaurant, site launched, front end, back end. I don't know. But there's a meaning in that. If you apply CSS, you can try to guess what it means. But if you cannot see this site, if you're a search engine, if you're a screen reader user, there's no way you can tell what's going on here. Everything you should do is just apply a few semantic tags, and now we'll look at it, and now we understand. This is a portfolio of a web studio, and what they did, they made a site for restaurant. What they did for restaurant, they launched a site, and there's a list of things that they did for them. They did something on front end, they did something on back end. It all started to mean something once we add meaningful tags. And this is just a mess. So again, you can keep all your fancy tags, you can keep all your BAM and React data IDs and everything you want. Just add extra sauce, extra tags. It won't hurt, because those things mean nothing to browser. Those things mean nothing to search engines. Those are just wrappers. Use semantic elements inside. Often our students ask me question, why do you always show me lists? Like, instead of just putting some links in a div, you're suggesting to put some unordered list and put every link in a separate list item, like so many tags, and sometimes they're just plain useless. And what I say is that this is how a screen reader would read this code. Look again. This is a navigation container. This is the 3 list items and links inside of them. Once you're focused on navigation element, screen reader will read aloud. This is a navigation landmark list, 1 of 3. This is the first thing that it will say. It's a navigation, and there is a list of 3 items. And by using this information, you can understand if it's a cloud, tag cloud, or if it's just a navigation, or you will have some idea in your mind. Because when you see it on a screen with CSS applied, it's easy. Like you see like 5 links, 3 links, you understand it's a menu, it's a tag cloud. But when you read it, it's crucial for you to have some idea in your mind what's going on. So by using lists, you give this idea. Like there are screen reader will read the number of items in this list, and then only then will read link home, link projects, link contacts. That's it. That's why we need lists. This is a simple semantic markup. There's nothing too complicated about it. And by using this snippet, it will be just link home, link project, link contacts. You probably might guess where will you go by clicking those links, but there's no navigation landmark thing. There's no you won't understand that there are 2 more links after you focus on the first link. You will get just a link home. What's next? Who knows? You're just pressing tab and you're like hoping for the best. This is everyday reality of screen reader users, and we're able to help them. And what landmark is? Landmark is a special place in your code that will convey some information to users. Like, imagine a city like Lviv. You have some marketplace, you have some banks, you have some libraries, and some places that mean something. Where will you go and get something valuable, something important, and something like this. The same applies to your pages. Once you have header, screen reader will expect something like typical header on a typical site, menus, search, and etc. etc. Once you get navigation landmark, it will expect some navigation links, etc. In the main element, one and the only main element on a page, it should be one and the only. Repeat after me. One and the only. Thank you. It should be the main content of a page. In the footer, there should be some meta information, some additional side note thing like a lot of links and company logo or something like this. So there is a way to switch between those landmarks in screen readers by pressing special buttons. So you can, once your page loaded, you can go straight to the main element by pressing Q, I think, in NVDA, the screen reader. Single button and you're on the main content. Don't steal this feature from users by not using main element. Put it on every page. Mark the main content of a page with a single main element. This is so easy. The same applies for headings. If you have headings on your page, there's a way to list all headings on your page in a screen reader. So they will have an outline of your page, like company name, services, design, development. By using just headings and keeping the nesting, not nesting, but level of a heading correct, like main heading for the whole page, and then something H2 and H3, etc., etc. So keep those levels organized, and you will have outline for your site. Really, really useful for screen reader users. And there are also interactive elements that most of the developers don't understand. Because like for the most developers, div and select or div or link are the same elements. But when you click on a link, you just go to the different page. This is not true, because div cannot be focused. Div cannot be selected by screen reader, by keyboard user, because it's not interactive. Elements like links, buttons, text inputs are interactive. And I'll give you a short instruction how to choose between if it's a link or button. Like really, really short and nice. You probably have seen it before in my previous talks, but just try to remember for this time. It's always a button. Always. Like everything that user clicks is a button. Apply this rule to your code. It's always button. If it's not, it's a link. If you need a user to go somewhere, to change URL, to scroll page by anchor, or something like this, then it's not a button. That's it. So next time you put some div class button in your code, remember this. It's always button. Because buttons are great because they are focusable. Because screen readers know what they do, those buttons. They could be clicked. Because div is nothing for a screen reader. So it's always button. Otherwise, it's link. That's it. Remember. The same applies for text inputs. Like it's a typical interactive element. Once you have your text cursor in this field, everything you press on your keyboard will be kept inside. So it steals focus. This is an important thing to understand. The same actually applies to buttons. Once you have a button, you can click it by pressing space. And once you have a link focused, you can also go to the URL by pressing Enter key. So it steals focus. And this is an important thing for developers to understand, because they think everything that could be used is a mouse and maybe a finger on a touch platform. But no, a keyboard is also very powerful. And most developers also don't understand how controls work, how interactive controls actually work. So this is a typical example. This is an input and a label. Like you type something, you switch between them, and you see some focus, and you see some interaction. But typical developer would do something like this, like input text, span names, input text, and surname. And for the screen reader, once first input is focused, it's just an input without any label, without anything at all. It's just an input. Type something, anything, because we have no idea what you're supposed to type here, because there's no label. But there is a way to attach label to this input by just using label element and providing for an ID connection between them. So you're just adding text label to the input, and once this input is focused, screen reader will understand this is a name field, and we expect you to type your name in this field. Easy. There is a simple way of doing this by just nesting your input and text string inside of a label. You don't have to mess up with IDs and fors and etc. So there's always should be a label for interactive element. This is very important, because if you're someone telling you, this is an interactive element, interact with it. Interact with it to do what? To achieve what? There's always should be a label telling you what to do and what will happen. The same applies for The same applies for radio buttons. Developers don't always understand the difference between radio buttons and checkbox, because they don't understand that radio buttons grouped with the same name is actually a single control. You see, I'm switching between radio buttons here on this video by just pressing arrow keys. I pressed tab once, I'm here, I'm using arrow buttons to switch between them. They are grouped together by the same name. So all of this is actually a single control, just like input, just like select. Select is a good example. So this is select, but in different form, different shape. And to be able to make it right, you should understand that. This is a different thing from checkbox, because you can select only one thing at a time. The same with this control. Have you used this control in your code ever? I guess you hand coded it, right? But this is a, thank you, Martin, again. But this is just a built-in element that's available in browsers. You can focus the handle of this element and use arrows to move it. You don't need a mouse to do this. If you needed two handles on this range, it's not possible currently in browser. Make it work with keyboard, so one handle could be focused and moved with arrows. Recreate elements that does not exist in a right way. This is important. So just like I said, it's just two inputs with type range. And also not widely known among developers, details element. You can hide something and show without JavaScript. It's just a simple HTML element. Use it. It's just details element with summary, and by default, this thing under the summary is hidden. Once you press summary, it will just open. Don't recreate something that already exists in browser. You can, if you have to support browsers when it's not implemented, just add some extra polyfill from npm. It's very secure, I heard. So, and I bet you haven't seen this control ever. Maybe some of you. This is also built-in control. There's no JavaScript involved. I type, I see suggestion. I see number of suggestions based on letters I type, and I actually can click this arrow and see all of them. This is a built-in element in HTML. Again, it's not widely supported, but it exists. You can polyfill it. You can make it work in your code. And this is super accessible in browsers. It could be operated using screen reader. How it looks? It's just an input with a list attribute connected to data list element by ID. And by providing option, you get this suggestion list. That's it. Yeah, take a photo. Because this is an amazing thing. By the end of the talk, I'll give you a link to slides. It works in browser, so you'll have all links and videos and screenshots. And another very important thing for you to understand and for users because they depend on it a lot is focus. This is the AliExpress site. Do you have an account on this site, or do you buy something on this site? This is just a cheap Chinese things you can buy for no price, like really anything, like clickers, phones, and everything. So it's quite important, quite famous in Russia. Like all our post offices are just crowded with people trying to get their order from this Chinese. Anyway, let's play a game. Where am I now here? I'm somewhere here. I can press enter in this interface, and I will go somewhere. Where am I? Where am I? Okay, it's not fair game. I could be anywhere because there's no way to tell. There's no way to tell. I can zoom in. Like I could be here on a wish list. I could be here on my name, like anywhere. Like even on this button, you wouldn't. There's no way to tell because what they did, they removed focus ring. And if I navigate this interface using keyboard, I'm nowhere. It's not usable at all. It's easier to just close it. What they did, I found this little thing in their CSS. How many of you have this in your CSS? Let's be honest. Oh. Yeah, I used to do this myself. I'm not proud of it. You shouldn't be neither, because this is what causes this problem with AliExpress site. I'm nowhere. Please remove this thing from your code and replace it with something better. You can do outline 0 on an element-based basis level, and then replace it with something better: background, outline, box shadow, whatever. Just make sure that the focus is visible to users. And how they move between those interactive elements on the pages, they use tab key. You always guessed why would you need tab key on your keyboard, I guess. But tab is to move forward, and shift tab to move backwards. That's it. Use it every day while navigating huge, boring forms. It will save you a lot of time, if those forms are accessible, if there's no focus outline none in your code. Because for you, it might be very useful. For you, it might save a lot of time. But for many people, this is the only way they communicate with your interfaces. One and the only way, through the keyboard using tab key. And if your interface couldn't be navigated using tab key, it's useless for people using keyboard. Please remember that. And how to get to this tab index? You can use buttons, you can use links, you can use built-in interactive elements like selects, text area, range, whatever, many others. Or you can fake it. You can apply certain attributes. So you can use a tab index attribute on any element, div as well, to make it interactive, to make it focusable. So by applying tab index 0, you add elements to the focus and to the tab order. So just like button, it will be focusable when you press tab through the page. By adding tab index -1, you're also making this interactive, but it's kind of a hidden. Just like, z index -1. It's like behind. It's not in order, but it could be focused using JavaScript, like element.focus, and it's focused. So it's not in the order, but it's ready. It's waiting for a moment to be focused, to be interactive. And tab index more than 0 is just problematic. Don't use it ever, because it's like z-index. You have z-index 99, and someone have z-index 999, and yeah, it's endless fight. So tab index more than 0, it's an anti-pattern. It's problematic. Don't use it because it's easy to mess everything up. And here's the short video showing how to another game. 2 of those buttons are real buttons. The rest 2 are just divs. Can you guess what of them? What's what? All buttons? Huh. Right. So what's happening here in the second part of this video? That I'm focusing element and then press space. I'm using keyboard to navigate between them. It works for div, for button, for anything. But when I press keyboard space on my keyboard, I get some reaction. And what's happening here? So yeah, The first and the third are real buttons. The second and the fourth are fake buttons. I just added tab index 0 and added some styling so they look similar. And this might do the trick for you, but it will make everything much more complicated. Follow me. This is a simple CSS. See, I disabled outline. It's OK once you have something instead of it. I added just a box shadow with no blur, just a stroke, and the white one and blue one. And I have a really nice outline here. But what else? I added a small piece of JavaScript here. I look for all button classes in my code, because all of them, both divs and buttons, have this class. I go through them and I add event listener click. And once it's clicked, I disable it. Wait a second. I wasn't clicking buttons. I was pressing space key. What's going on here? Button elements, they fake click event when space is pressed. It's just built into browsers. When you listen click with the mouse, when someone clicks button, click event fires. But when someone focused button and pressed space, click also fires. This is so convenient. You don't have to detect space key code or something like this. You have to do this for div, but it's already built into buttons. The same applies for disabled, the same trick. There's no disabled attribute for div. You have to recreate it yourself. But you can add a disabled pseudo-class in your CSS, and you can use this property to disable button. And once button is disabled, clicks are no longer firing. There's no way to focus button. There's no way to click button because it's disabled. This is so convenient, so I have no idea why would anyone use div instead of buttons. I hope you too. I'm running out of time, but I think I'm going to finish this talk because you can clearly see that I feel it's an important thing to do. There's another important thing in interfaces, just like I already mentioned before. This is label. And label is a thing that tells you what this interactive element could do. This is a label. You see, href, home. Home is a label for the link. Easy. It's a label. Legend is a caption of a group. You can nest legend element into fig caption, and all controls inside of it will have this label applied. I'll show you later how it works. When you attach this label element, actual label element, to input, it also becomes a label for input. This is label as well. And when you have this span class visually hidden, something that's hidden but available for screen readers, this is also label. Label for some interactive element. The same applies for extra special attributes. There's an area label attribute that could add label to any element. If you have an empty button, you can add your area label something, and it will have label. It will have some description. It's like alt for images. It's a label as well. I forgot to add it here. And by the way, if you use those funny Unicode symbols, you should be aware that this sounds in a screen reader like black right pointing triangle. Not useful at all. If you have this thing in your code, just a simple Unicode symbol, screen reader will read it aloud, the name of it. So it should be hidden or some graphic used instead. And this is actual multiply sign. So a screen reader will read not your cross thing to close your pop-up, but it will read times. What times? What do you mean? And X, some of you use probably X letter for closing your pop-ups, right? How many? This is X. Screen reader will read it like X. What X? X what? And this is an empty space. This is nothing. If you have empty button, it sounds like one hand clapping. Sounds like nothing. If there's no content, if there's no label in your button, it means nothing. It's probably not safe to click, you know, because it could do anything. Like, close my browser, maybe. Like, so be careful with those Unicode strings or hide them. This is the thing that when I saw it, I was so impressed by the thing that browsers do with accessibility that I just want to share it with you. Stay with me; it will be over soon. So this is the field set element. This is a set of fields. You know, it's in a name, and you can put a legend element with some caption for all your fields. And you have some input, and you have some labels for them, and you put the legend element on top of it. Easy. And what would screen reader read in this case? Fridge, color black, selected radio button 1 of 2, 1 of 2. So it will attach legend contents to every single input inside of field set. So screen reader will read for the first radio button fridge color black, and then fridge color white. This thing is located just on the top of the field set. You might expect screen reader to just read it once and then go down, but no, it will read it before every single input in this field set, because it's a caption of a group, and this caption should be read before every member of this group. This is so useful. So please choose legend content of the legend element very wisely, because so they would make sense once they read before actual labels. So fridge color black, fridge color white, very useful. And if you have empty button with some SVG inside of it, just add area label and actual label for this icon. And it will be accessible and available for all users that using screen readers. They will understand that it's not just an empty button. It's a button with, and that's a button. Once you click it, you will like something. Typical Facebook case or something like this. And if you have this weird hamburger character, which is Unicode, screen reader will also try to read it aloud. This is kind of a heaven sign, something like this. I don't remember actually, but applying area label will rewrite content of a button element. So it doesn't matter what's inside. Once you add area label, screen reader will take this as a content of an element. Only this, only area label will be read. The same applies here. You can use area hidden true. You will get the same results in screen reader in both cases. Which one you prefer, like, it's up to you. So yeah, be careful with Unicode. Replace it with area label or just hide it with area hidden. And something else, well, there is a typical thing in online stores when you have a lot of goods and you have buy now, buy now, buy now buttons. When you see the whole interface, it's clear to you. Like you have this phone and the button buy now next to it, and you see, okay, when I click this button, I will go probably to my checkout process or something like this. But when you're using screen reader, it's not obvious to you at all. All you get is buy now, link, buy now, link, buy now, link. I can go on. This is what users will hear once they navigate links only. There's a way to navigate only links on a page. and those links are just useless because they are not connected. You can keep both sides happy. You can keep visual users happy, and you can keep screen readers users happy at the same time by doing this. You can actually add your text here and visually hide it. So screen reader will read "buy awesome thing now." That's it. So you can enhance your interfaces for screen readers with different tricks. Once you understand that you need it, once you understand that it's possible, and sometimes it's just crucial for your interface, just do it. It's not a big deal. You can just add extra text. And what if there's no heading on my site? What if it's just headless design, or I don't know how to call it? Because I have some content, some useful content on my page, but there's no heading in design. But I have to explain my interface somehow to screen reader users. You can just apply the same visually hidden class and then hide it. And it's search engine optimized friendly. So there is an official reply from Google, and it's okay to hide those things for usability. You're not stuffing it with some doorway links and trash. You're just helping screen reader users to get a real content when there's no content in design. And what is visually hidden? It's just a simple pattern that you should have in your code. Add this helper class to your code, please. This is very useful to hide things that should be there but not drawn in design. So it's just position absolute plus clipping to 0. That's it. Simple and beautiful, I think. A bit of an ugly hack, but still beautiful. So yeah, there are some tools that you should try to use. Some of them are good, some of them are not. Like you should definitely try at least once some screen reader, just to enable it for a couple of minutes and understand how they read your project. VoiceOver is built in on Mac. It's built in on iOS. NVDA and JAWS are. NVDA is free. JAWS costs you some money. It's for Windows. And there are many other. There's also built-in screen reader on Windows, built-in screen reader on Android, etc., etc. But those are most popular. So if you're on Windows, just try NVDA. If you're on Mac, try VoiceOver. Not sure about Linux, to be honest. There should be something in there too. And this is quite popular tool that used to be an extension for Google Chrome. It's called Lighthouse. It allows you to test how progressive your application is. You know, progressive web applications, blah, blah, blah. But they built it in Chrome 60 recently, and it's possible to test your site, how accessible it is as well. Not just performant or progressive. And this is Ukropochta, I hope I spell it right, Ukropochta site, and this is 100% accessible. Woohoo! I'm so proud of you. But it's not. It's not accessible. But this thing thinks that it's accessible because it passes all the tests. But when you go and check it for yourself, you see, ta-da! There's no way to tell where you're now on this site. But Lighthouse doesn't check for this outline thing. Maybe in future releases they will. And also they have the worst alts possible. I think they're just using file names without extension instead of actual description for images. So Lighthouse checks there is an alt and there is a content in it. Maybe it should be useful, I guess, I hope. And that's it. Not useful at all. So Ukropochta, there's something. Yeah, there's something else. There's something for you to do. If you know someone there are some kind of projects that are crucial for a country, for society, like railways, posts, offices, etc., etc. Some government sites. It's impossible. It's very important for you to be able to access it on any device, because you're a member of this society and you're a citizen of this country. So they should be accessible. So just find developers of Ukrposhta and make them fix it. But there is a much better tool called Accessibility Inspector. It's disabled for now in Chrome DevTools. You can enable it. Don't take a photo. You'll have a link at the end. So you can go Chrome flags, blah, 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 and then enable it. And then you have something like this. I just focused, you have typical menu on the right side, like with styles, computed, blah, blah, blah. But you will have one extra more tab with a kind of a accessibility DOM tree or something like this. Accessibility tree. That's the word. And I just focused the search field on Google Maps, and it gave me all information. There is an area label applied. Good for them. It gives a clear idea what to do, because this search Google Maps is probably just a placeholder, which means nothing. Don't use placeholders, use labels. It's much more accessible. And there is a has pop-up attribute, because there is a pop-up dropped down from this text menu. So area accessible rich internet application is a huge area. It will take like a week for me to explain everything to you. So I won't do this right now. So if you know what's everything in this talk, and you want to go somewhere else, go learn area. This will take you to the next step. Google is a good example of using area attributes and everything. So use this inspector to understand what's going on in your not just test and get the 100% score. You saw how it works. It doesn't work, to be honest. But sometimes it could help you to solve some basic issues. But to move a bit further, you have to enable this accessibility inspector. If your memory is limited today, because it's not the only talk, it's not even the last talk for today, I ask you to remember some crucial things from this talk, some of the most important things that I mentioned today. Number one, buttons and links. It's always a button, sometimes it's a link. Please remember this. Like, I'll have a tattoo or something like this on me one day. Tab and focus. Don't disable focus. Try to use your interfaces of your project using tab and shift tab. This is how people use your interfaces actually, not just mouse. Headings. Keep the structure of your project, of your page organized using headings with different levels, etc., etc. Because when you open a newspaper, you don't read every line of this. You just look through and you use the most interesting headings. Screen readers do the same thing. They look for the most interesting, the most valuable headings for them, and then read the next thing. So help users to get proper headings. And text labels. Every element should have text label. Every. Attribute, text content, hidden text, anything. But every interactive element should have text label. 4 simple things. Please apply it to your work, and it will make your project better. If you want to read something more, I'll get you covered. There are many things like on YouTube, books and articles and some documentation. It's just the most valuable things for me personally. So you'll have a link later. And this is the alligator from my T-shirt, saying arigato, meaning thank you, for maybe not today, but tomorrow you will make your interfaces more accessible, more user-friendly, and better for everybody, not just people with 100% healthy people with very good mouses. So thank you for your future contribution in accessibility, and You can find this presentation by this link in Human, and this is the English version. I will read this talk in Russian one day, in a couple of weeks actually. So without N, you will have Russian version as well. So you can take photo now, but I guess it will be published too. You can find me everywhere as Pepels Bay. So like every social network that you can imagine, because it's quite unique nickname. I'm lucky. And this presentation works on shower presentation engine I built. So this is all browser-based. I think I don't have time for questions, but thank you.